So that now brings us to Daniel chapter 8. And this one I've subtitled The Little Horn's Attack on the Truth. And we're going to get right into that. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. So this is basically 2 years after the vision of Daniel 7. And I saw in a vision, and it came to pass, when I saw, that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam, and I saw in a vision, and I was by the river Ulai. Verse 3, Then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had 2 horns. And the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. I saw the ram pushing westward, and northward, and southward, so that no beasts might stand before him. Neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will, and became great. And as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west, on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground, and the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. And he came to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. So this is late in Daniel's life. He's at the end of the Babylonian reign. We didn't cover this in chapter 5, but at the end of chapter 5, after the handwriting on the wall incident, where Belshazzar is essentially told that his kingdom is going to be taken from him that night, Babylon was now off the scene. The next kingdom was going to be more relevant within the stream of the prophecy itself. So, verse 7, And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his 2 horns, and there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground, and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and for it came up 4 notable ones toward the 4 winds of heaven. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great toward the south, the east, and toward the pleasant land. And it waxed great even to the host of heaven. And it cast down some of the host and of the stars to the ground, and stamped upon them. Verse 11, Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of the sanctuary was cast down. And an host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, How long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden under foot? And he said unto me, Unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. And it came to pass, when I, Daniel, had seen the vision, and sought for the meaning, then behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man. And the reason these words are highlighted will become clear when we study the next chapter. So we see in these first verses of Daniel 8 that we're now dealing with sanctuary animals. You have a ram and a he-goat that represent certain things, certain essentially kingdoms. But there's this little horn that would come up, and it would wax great, and it would trample you see that by him the sanctuary was cast down and the truth was cast down. And then a question is asked, how long shall this vision be? And he's told, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. And there's a misconception that this is a 2,300 day prophecy, but it actually extends far beyond that. It's just 2,300 days until the sanctuary would be cleansed, so until a certain thing would happen, and that's going to be clear as we get more into this study. But what I want to point out here is that we're given a definition. Remember, the Bible interprets itself. No prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. So we don't have to worry about who the ram was or who the goat was, because we're told, the ram which thou sawest having 2 horns are the kings of Media and Persia, and the rough goat is the king of Grecia, or Greece, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. Now that being broken, or the king of Greece, whereas 4 stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. And this actually aligns with the end of chapter 5, where the writing on the wall incident takes place, and Belshazzar is told that his empire would be coming to an end. It ends and says that the kingdom was given to Darius the Mede, being 62 years old. And then, of course, Darius the Mede was given charge over the kingdom of Babylonia. But the Persians were now in charge of the greater kingdom, run by King Cyrus of Persia. Now, jumping forward to verse 23, and in the latter time of their kingdom, meaning the 4 kingdoms that came out of the kingdom of Greece, if you will, when the transgressors are come to a full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up, and his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. And he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and holy people. And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but shall be broken without hand. Now, that should sound familiar, because it aligns with what we originally saw in Daniel chapter 2, with again the statue being struck at the feet, and it was struck by a rock that was made without hand. And we saw in chapter 7 that this little horn would essentially make war against the Most High and his people, would think to change times and laws, would magnify himself to the place of the Most High. And here in chapter 8, we're seeing that he would cast the sanctuary and the truth to the ground. It's just essentially laying more content on top of the foundation. It reminds me of an evangelist I used to watch who says repetition deepens impression. And that's what's happening, is we're given the foundation and we're given information that builds on top of that foundation, so that everything is within a certain framework. And so if you try to inject other things that don't fit into the framework and don't fit the foundation, then they're private interpretation and should be discarded. So building on our little diagram here, we see that in Daniel chapter 8, it would be attack by the little horn on the truth and the sanctuary. There's a reference to the sanctuary being cleansed, and it introduces this idea of the scripture of truth that we'll talk about more in, again, Daniel 10 through 12. But going back to our chart, now we're going to lay Daniel's second vision in chapter 8 on top of this. Remember, Babylon is now insignificant. It's off the scene. The vision opens with a 2-horned ram representing that second kingdom. The third kingdom represented by this male goat. Sorry, some of the language I have is from a different translation here. Notice it said, when the transgressors are come to a full after the 4 winds of the kingdom, there would be one arising that understood dark sentences. This is the introduction to this little horn within the context of this 4th kingdom, which he essentially comes out of. Because remember, the 4th kingdom was made of iron, but the 5th kingdom had elements of iron in it. But here in this 5th kingdom, if you will, we see this little horn in his conquest going vertical towards heaven, where he cast the truth and the sanctuary to the ground. But there would be a cleansing of the sanctuary after that time. Now let's just add a little bit more color here, because this vision adds a spiritual or sanctuary focus to what was the foundation laid on sort of like an earthly kingdom focus. But what we're seeing now is that following Babylon, where we can fill in the rest of these kingdoms with what the Bible says. We saw that the two-horned ram was the kingdom of Media and Persia. And of course you can trace that through history to know that the Persians took over the Babylonian Empire, and that was followed by the Empire of Greece, with Alexander being the first king of unified Greece. And it's said that Alexander even believed this prophecy to be of him, where it says he would be that male goat represented here in Daniel chapter 8. Again, the vision is explained. Daniel is told that the two-horned ram is Media and Persia. He's told that the large horn or the great horn would be the first king of unified Greece, and then 4 smaller horns or 4 smaller kingdoms would come from him. And as you trace back history, you know that after Alexander died, his kingdom was essentially broken up into 4 generals, or Cassander, Lysimachus, Ptolemy, and Seleucus, and this is representing them. Okay, then again, the transgressors, that's the Romans. When they are come to a stern-faced king, knowing dark sentences. Again, I'm borrowing language from the NIV when I put this together back in like 2009. But this stern-faced king is the little horn, represented in unfortunately, the Bible doesn't give us the empire of Rome, but we know from history that Rome took over, defeated the Greeks, and then Rome itself was never defeated by another empire, but sort of dissolved into the Roman Catholic Church, which did have nations at its feet, literally. And again, that kingdom would be destroyed in the context of judgment, not by human power. So we're just putting this picture together, but prior to moving forward and completing it, we're going to talk a little more about this little horn, because I just said something that might ruffle some feathers, but I just want to put it in context so that you can see that this isn't my ideology or my idea, but this is something that's been known for quite some time.